I'd like to direct my question to Mr. George. Mr. George, I raised the issue of employment-related identity theft with the commissioner the last time he testified before the committee here. And I know that TIGTA has done a lot of work on this issue. These are cases in which someone else uses someone else's identity, their name or their Social Security number, to get a job illegally on the employment side. A W-2 form with this false information is then sent to IRS and Social Security Administration by an employer, or the W-2 may be attached to the tax return of the undocumented worker. Our staffs met to try to work this out. It was a couple of months ago. What we learned is that, one, the IRS continues to process tax returns with a false W-2 information and issues refunds as if they were routine tax returns, saying, "Well, that's not really our job. We're there to process the returns and issue the refunds or collect what's overdue." We also learned the IRS ignores notifications from Social Security Administration that a name does not match a Social Security number, and you use your own system to determine whether or not a number is valid. We learned that employers are liable for IRS fines and penalties if they submit false W-2 information, yet neither the IRS nor SSA are notifying employers that the information they're submitting is false. We learned that IRS identified 200,000 new cases of employment-related identity theft last year and marked the victims' accounts, yet did not notify the victims. Again, saying that's really not our job. In fact, the IRS forbids its employees from notifying victims that their information has been stolen. The IRS does not examine returns submitted on paper for employment-related identity theft. And lastly, we learned that when the IRS marks the account of a victim, it does not notify Social Security Administration that the victims did not earn the income reported on a W-2. And as a result, the victims could lose income-related benefits because their Social Security earnings are not corrected. My question to you is that, one, have we made some progress since we met, and on the basis of what we learned? And secondly, if you don't have the authority to better inform victims or connect with SSA on a potential fraud, and notify each other, do you need authority to be able to do that? Do you need statutory mandate here from the Congress to do that? Or where do we go? I mean, I think all of us can agree that victims need to know that they're victims, and they need to know that an agency of the federal government, whether it's IRS or whether it's SSA or both, ought to have some ability to talk to each other to make sure that they don't get run afoul of one or the other. Happy to hear your response.
No, thank you, Senator. What you stated at the outset of your question is completely accurate. I would note the IRS did have a pilot program to address this issue. That program ended, so they are not providing the information that you pointed out. But we are literally, sir, in the process now of assessing this overall issue and expect to issue our report in June of this year.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, but was the pilot program false? I mean, it just didn't work out. Is that?
You know, I will defer to the commissioner to describe whether or not he thinks it was. Was it false? No. I mean, but they made a decision not to continue it, and I don't know whether it was resource-driven or whatever factor that they took into consideration, Senator.
Yeah.
But
Commissioner, could I have you had
surely. Again, as you know, what happens in these situations is someone is using a Social Security number to get a job, but they're filing their tax return with their ITIN, their undocumented aliens. Mm-hmm. And so on that ground, they file taxes. It's in everybody's interest to have them pay the taxes they owe. The question is whether the Social Security number they're using to get the job has been stolen. It's not the normal identity theft situation. We did run a pilot, and we are looking at, and appreciated your discussions about this, whether there's a way we could simply advise people. A lot of time those Social Security numbers are in fact borrowed from friends or acquaintances, and people know they've been used. Other times they don't. So we're looking at, and one of the reasons the pilot was, what's the most effective way to deal with this? without necessarily having people decide not to file their taxes. Obviously, priority is for the taxpayers, and the IRS is collecting those taxes. So I'd be delighted to have us get back to you with more detail of exactly where we are. And in some cases, there may be a need for statutory authority because we are very sensitive to protecting taxpayer information on both sides. But we will be delighted to give you the update on what we've learned and what we might be able to do going forward.
Mr. George?
Excuse me, Senator. I just wanted to add that there was a bill introduced entitled the Social Security Identity Defense Act that would require the IRS to inform an individual whether their SS number has been fraudulently used. I don't know where it stands now in terms of the legislative process.
Well, we can check that out.
Yeah, but I would note specifically, we do advise taxpayers when there's been any kind of access to one of our online applications that their Social Security is in the hands of criminals. What we're talking about here is a very limited case of people filing taxes with an ITIN, but it's clear that they used a Social Security number to get the job. But in all the other cases, we've sent out hundreds of thousands of letters, even when our system hasn't been accessed, warning taxpayers, no information was obtained from us, but you should know criminals have your Social Security number and other identifiers, so you should take whatever actions you can to protect that information.
Commissioner, if I could, Mr. Chairman, just one last question. My tax preparer, by the way, who's fully certified, just sent me an email saying, would I prefer to have my tax returns filed electronically or by paper? How am I safer? Which way?
You're actually safer electronically because we can mark accounts. The only difference is when you file in paper, it just takes longer to process, takes longer to get a refund. We get fraudulent paper returns, so it's not as if the criminals don't file paper as well. So we encourage everyone to e-file. Over 86% filed last year electronically. And as noted, it does give us the ability to track patterns more easily, and it's part of the data we share with the private sector and with states. So our advice to you is file electronically.
Any other answer would probably flood your agency with a lot of paper. I'll put that in that context. Anyway, I ended up doing it electronically. I hope it works. Thank you.